Welcome back. This, that, and the other talk. I'm your host, Mark, and this is Today in History, June the 15th, 1215. King John puts his seal on Magna Carta. Following a revolt by the English nobility against his rule, King John puts his royal seal on Magna Carta, or the Great Charter, on June 15, 1215. The document, essentially a peace treaty between John and his barons, guaranteed that the king would respect feudal rights and privileges, uphold the freedom of the church, and maintain the nation's laws. Although more a reactionary than a progressive document, in its day, Magna Carta has seen as a cornerstone in the development of democratic England by later generations. John was enthroned as King of England following the death of his brother, King Richard the Lionhearted, in 1199. King John's reign was characterized by failure. He lost the Duchy of Normandy to the French king and taxed the English nobility heavy to pay for his foreign misadventures. He quarreled with the Pope, Innocent, and church offices to build up the depleted royal coffers. Following the defeat of a campaign to reign Normandy in 1214, Stephen Langton, the Archbishop of Canterbury, called on the disgruntled barons to demand a charter of liberties from the king. In 1215, the barons rose up in rebellion against the king's abuse of feudal law and custom. John, faced with a superior force, had no choice but to give in to their demands. Earlier kings of England had granted concessions to their feudal barons, but these charters were vaguely worded and issued voluntary. The document drawn up for John in June of 1215, however, forced the king to make specific guarantees of the rights and privileges of his barons and the freedom of the church. On June the 15th, 1215, John met with the barons at Runnymede on the Thames and set his seal on the Articles of the Barons, which after minor revision was formally issued as Magna Carta. Also this day in history, in 1910, Robert Falcon Scott's Terra Nova expedition begins. In 2005, police shoot Vandersloot home in Holloway disappearance. In 1864, the Battle of Petersburg begins. In 1846, U.S.-Canadian border is established. In 1877, the first African-American graduate of West Point, Henry Ossain Flipper. And in 1943, the Blobel Commando begins its cover-up of atrocities. In 1964, President Johnson decided against asking Congress for authority to wage war. In 1775, George Washington assigned to lead the Continental Army. And in the year 1300, Dante is named Prior of Florence. In 1904, fire on riverboat leaves more than 1,000 dead. In 1946, the United States presents the March Plan. In 1863, President Lincoln calls for help in protecting Washington, D.C. In 1776, Delaware declares independence. And finally, in 1917, U.S. Congress passes the Espionage Act. Well, that's been This Day in History. Godspeed, fair wind, and following seas. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.